This forum, which has been raised to the level of a summit, is not a new event. Ministers from China and Africa have been meeting as a group for some 15 years. CCTV's Roee Ruttenberg has a look back at the history of cooperation.
Well, FOCAC is actually a three-level forum. The first level, the top level, is the big ministerial conference, the one that's due to start on Friday, and it's held every 3 years. A few days before each conference, senior officials hold a preparatory meeting, and then 2 years later, 1 year before the next conference, they hold a follow-up meeting. Aside from that, African diplomats in China also meet up at least twice a year with what's called the Chinese Follow-Up Committee. This year's ministerial conference is the 6th conference. The first one was held back in Beijing in October of 2000. There, Chinese and African leaders adopted what was to serve as the model for the continent's economic and social development. The agreement has since served as the basis of long-term cooperation between China and Africa. And that year, the Chinese government canceled debts of nearly $2 billion for a number of Africa's least developed countries. 3 years later, at a conference in the Ethiopian capital, China agreed to train 10,000 African professionals. China also agreed to allow in tariff-free exports from some of the least developed African countries. In 2006, the first summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation convened in Beijing. There, China announced it would provide a number of African countries with preferential loans and export buyers credit. Beijing also agreed to assist in the building of the African Union Conference Center. 3 years later, in the Egyptian sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, ministers announced new cooperation covering agriculture, healthcare, and the environment. And in the summer of 2012, back in Beijing, China outlined what it said were the 5 priority areas for cooperation: investment and financing, assistance, African integration, non-governmental exchanges, and peace and security. This year's conference is being held in Johannesburg, South Africa. At a welcoming banquet on Thursday with dozens of leaders who will be participating, Chinese President Xi Jinping said China and Africa need to use their friendship as an incentive to pursue cooperation and development. And with that, he set the tone for the 2015 summit. Roee, Ruttenberg, CCTV in Washington.